So people have been sending this over to me. Why is the Philippines the only country in Southeast Asia welcoming Ukrainians? Now, you guys have been sending this over because, I've already watched so many different things in the history of the Philippines of what they've done and the beautiful things that they have accomplished actually as well. And they've done so many kind things, especially with like the Jews when everything was happening. It's a lot of different things that was going on. And it was honestly incredible, seeing history like that. I've always enjoyed looking at history and looking at it from a not a perspective of, hey, politics this, politics that. Nothing about politics here. I'm just looking at, why are they the only ones welcoming them right now? Whether this be the kindness of the Philippines itself or other things like that. Of course, people will have their political standpoint or whatever. I'm not even into politics. Don't even involve me in it. I mean, I'm sure you guys are probably going to argue in the comments some way or another. But hey, remember, I'm just watching this video you guys have linked over to me. And I am excited to obviously see it and see why they are the only ones right now in Southeast Asia welcoming Ukrainians. Come join me. Let's see this together. Please, let's go.
Would you be willing to leave behind everything, your home, your family, your memories, just to stay alive? Millions of Ukrainians had to do exactly that. But while the world turned away, a small country in Southeast Asia opened its arms to welcome them. Why the Philippines? A country that's not rich, not close to Ukraine, and has no special ties suddenly becomes a destination of hope. In this video, you'll see a story of humanity beyond borders, a lesson in compassion that earned global respect. Here's why the United Nations praised the Philippines in front of the entire world. This isn't the first time the Philippines saved refugees.
They've done this before, yes.
It's a powerful story that happened more than 80 years ago, but still remains unknown to many.
Yeah, if you guys don't know.
In 1939, as the fires of war began to spread across Europe, the world was shaken by a nightmare known as the Holocaust, the genocide of the Jews.
Yes.
But the heartbreaking truth, the world stayed silent. Many wealthy nations like the UK, the US, Canada, and Australia refused to take in Jewish refugees out of fear of economic collapse, security risks, or simply racial prejudice. Hundreds of thousands tried to flee, but every door was slammed shut. Then, from a distant place in Asia, the president of the Philippines at that time, Manuel L. Quezon, made a decision that defied all political logic. His country was still poor, still under US influence, still not independent, yet he chose compassion. We are poor, but we are not heartless, Quezon.
But rich in love, bro, and compassion.
He quietly ordered visas to be issued, expanded immigration procedures, even bought land and built temporary shelters to welcome Jewish refugees to live in Manila.
I actually have that reaction video on my channel, and I remember when I was looking at the documentary, kind of even seeing it from the Jews who as well were there, who have gotten older in the Philippines, and they've explained, how they felt and how everybody was completely kind as if nothing happened, and they all treated them equally, like, hey, you're one of us, like, this is what we are. We're all human, and, this is, I feel like, the most crucial things that people forget. In this political this or society this, like, I feel like you forget that, we're all human, we're all born here, and we're all in the same planet of Earth, and we should do this together, and a lot of different things happen to us, but we're all one overall. And especially in the Philippines, I feel like they're the most intact with that idea because of the way that they share with their family and the way that they are when it comes to community things. And you can see that here. I mean, they're one of the best at that.
1,300 lives were saved while the rest of the world turned its back. Think about this. As a country that wasn't even independent, could Quezon have been stopped by the Americans? With an economy still reeling from the 1930s crash, could his people have protested? With Japan already watching and war approaching, could he have risked national security? The answer is yes. But he did it anyway, because he believed that the value of human life was greater than any geopolitical calculation. And something amazing happened. Those rescued Jews built new lives in the Philippines. They had children, built communities, and contributed to medicine, education, science, and business. Today, many of their descendants still return to Manila laying flowers at the Jewish Memorial Park land donated by Quezon himself.
Wow.
Some elderly survivors now in their 90s say, "If it weren't for President Quezon, I would not have survived, and 4 generations after me would not exist." This story is not just history, it is a legacy of compassion.
Yeah.
While the world chose silence, one small, poor, and faraway country stood up for what was right. And now, 80 years later, that same spirit lives on. As the Philippines once again opens its arms to Ukrainians becoming a beacon of hope in the darkness of war. This is not just an old tale, it's a tradition that has lasted for decades. While the rest of Southeast Asia was still uncertain, the Philippines once again opened its arms to people drifting at sea. Have you ever heard of the Vietnamese boat people? After the fall of Saigon in 1975, hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese risked their lives on small, fragile boats, escaping the new regime where hunger and persecution. They had no idea where the shore would be, no GPS, no food, and no guarantee they'd survive. They held on to just one belief, that they had to leave if they wanted to live free. And then, many boats were attacked by pirates. Many died of thirst in the South China Sea. Those who were lucky enough to reach land silently hoped they wouldn't be turned away. Once again,
And it's scary,
the Philippines became a shining light of humanity. In Bataan, the Philippine Refugee Processing Center, PRPC, was established. It wasn't just a temporary shelter, it was a gateway of hope. Vietnamese refugees learned English. They received job training. They were given psychological support after the nightmares they endured at sea.
Oh, man.
And later,
See, I didn't know about
they
this
were
one.
resettled in countries like the US, Canada, and Australia. But what made this story even more special was how the Filipino people treated the Vietnamese. It wasn't just acceptance, it was compassion. Many Filipino families welcomed Vietnamese into their homes and shared their meals.
Oh,
Some
man.
Vietnamese married Filipinos and built their lives here. Children grew up between two cultures, speaking both languages and forever grateful to the land that embraced their parents. And did you know? Even today, every year groups of former boat people return to Bataan to remember and give thanks.
Dude.
They stand before a stone marker engraved with the word, "Freedom silent, unable to speak,"
Wow.
because they know that without the Philippines, they might not exist today.
You know what's insane is I literally reacted to a video recently, which is on my channel, that was, about what scientists revealed about genetics in Filipinos. And this dates back to, when all the colonization was going on and stuff like that. The Philippines, they were always welcoming, and they have so many different things in their blood. You guys have to watch that video. It was insane. Seeing the crazy findings that scientists almost revealed about the origins of Filipinos. It was one of the best videos I've ever seen explaining that. And it felt crazy because you could see that this outlook of always taking people in and, just making the best of what you have was always in the Filipinos. Like, you can see that from then and even now. Like, it's
So,
continuous.
When the Philippines welcomes Ukrainians today, it's not a random act.
Yeah,
It's a tradition, a part of their national identity.
exactly.
In an age of closed borders, they choose to open their hearts. And now, they are doing it again for the people of Ukraine. Once more, as the world burns in conflict, the Philippines chooses to stand with those who have nowhere else to go. February 2022, the world was stunned. Russia launched a full-scale war against Ukraine. Missiles struck residential areas. Tanks crushed city streets. An entire modern and civilized nation was suddenly turned into a living hell. Millions of Ukrainians, especially women, children, and the elderly, were forced to leave their homes with nothing but a few bags in hand. There was no time to prepare. No one knew where they would go. Only one thing was clear: they had to leave if they wanted to survive.
War is just
By mid-2023, more than 6.8 million Ukrainians had become refugees, one of the largest displacements of the 21st century. Neighboring countries like Poland, Moldova, and Romania were overwhelmed. Many Western nations had to tighten refugee programs due to political and economic strain. And slowly, the world began to grow silent, just like in 1939. But in the middle of that silence, the Philippines spoke out. A Southeast Asian country more than 8,000 kilometers from Ukraine declared it was ready to welcome Ukrainian refugees. Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara made a public statement. The Philippines will always honor its humanitarian commitments. If needed, we will open our doors. Immediately, the UNCR, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, praised this move, calling it a rare example of compassion and proactive leadership in Asia during a global crisis. But it wasn't just words. The Philippines backed its promise with action, activating an international standard reception system. They provided temporary housing, assisted with legal documentation, guaranteed access to education, healthcare, and safety, worked with humanitarian organizations to offer mental health support, language training, and cultural integration. And did you know? The Philippines is one of the very few Asian nations to sign all three major UN treaties on refugees and stateless persons. The 1951 Geneva Convention, the 1967 Protocol, and the 1954 Convention. This means when a Ukrainian refugee sets foot in the Philippines, they aren't just protected, they are allowed to live.
Wow.
What do Ukrainians in the Philippines feel? A woman named Katerina, 34, told an international newspaper, "I knew nothing about the Philippines before I fled, but now I know this is a safe place where people don't see you as a stranger." And
man.
What's even more special?
Yeah, dude, I got goosebumps.
The Philippines didn't do this for attention. There was no political gain, no pressure from superpowers. They simply chose to stand with those in despair.
With humans, bro.
When the world builds walls, we build bridges. A Filipino official once said that. Not just words, real action. While many countries stop at making beautiful statements, the Philippines quietly does what truly matters, protecting refugees through the rule of law. Have you ever thought about what happens after a refugee is granted entry? No home.
Yeah,
no belongings.
That's low-key something that is true.
No language.
Think about that.
No friends or family. Sometimes not even a nationality. In many countries, even when refugees are accepted, they're not allowed to live like human beings. They can't go to school.
Yeah.
They don't get medical care. They're not allowed to work. They have no legal protection. And they can be deported at any time. But in the Philippines, that doesn't happen. It's not a coincidence that the UNCR recognizes the Philippines as one of the rare countries in Asia with a truly humane and comprehensive refugee protection system. The Philippines has signed and fully implements the world's three most important treaties on refugee rights. The 1951 Geneva Convention defining refugee rights and obligations. The 1967 Protocol expanding protection without time or regional limits.
This is a beautiful thing.
The 1954 Convention on Stateless Persons, ensuring people are not made invisible in society.
Oh my gosh, guys, I'm honestly I'm blown away at how beautiful the Philippines can really be when it comes to humanity. You know, I guarantee people will always continue to say, and I mean, this is why the saying exists, the grass is always greener on the other side. Most people, have complaints about the Philippines or this and that. Every place has complaints. There's no place where you're on earth and you're just like, this is it. This is the most perfect. It's only as perfect as you make it be. You have to look at it and you see the good in it. And you can find so many good things about the Philippines, from the people, the humanity, and just so much admiration for the talents that are there. And I feel like, this is definitely one of the aspects to live there. They are very, very caring people. And I feel like at the end of the day, at the end of life, right, you want to be surrounded by a community of people who are caring and loving for, what you are and have something to stand for when it comes to that. And what they stand for is love and compassion. And you can see that in these things. And that's what I find is beautiful. And I'm looking at this as a human being. I'm not looking at this as a political this or that or this. None of that. I'm just looking at this as a beautiful human being who just cares about other human beings, especially when they're refugees, you know, like they take no part in this and then they have to escape. Where do they go? And like he mentioned, you know, they don't have anything. If you really think about it, if you let them in, where do they go? They can't just get a house. They need a visa. They need all these little things, all these nuances that just doesn't allow them to live correctly. You are basically homeless at that point. You're ruined, even if you manage to escape and survive. And I feel like this is the most beautiful thing that the Philippines has done. You know, just seeing this is unbelievable, man.
They didn't just sign the treaties, they put them into real action through law. The Philippines created a special government unit, the Refugees and Stateless Persons Protection Unit, under the Department of Justice. This unit is responsible for reviewing refugee applications, granting official protective status, issuing documents and residence permits, and working with international organizations to ensure human rights are upheld. Here's a concrete example. Ukrainians in the Philippines are not kept in closed camps. They stay in government-supported hostels or humanitarian shelters. Children can attend public schools. Adults can learn English for free and work legally if needed. There is no discrimination, no stigma, only support and understanding. The system also partners with UNCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, IAM International Organization for Migration, and local NGOs to build a full network of care from healthcare education and job training to legal aid, mental health, and cultural orientation. And this is what makes the Philippines truly different. They don't see refugees as a burden to control, but as people who deserve a chance. Did you know? Many refugees who once arrived in the Philippines later became teachers, doctors, entrepreneurs, and voices of hope for vulnerable communities.
Humans,
From people with no place to belong, they became part of a new society. And it all began with that first gesture of welcome through action, not just words. The untold story. Zelensky thanks the Philippines on Manila soil. Sometimes, a simple thank you is not just a diplomatic gesture, it's a recognition of a kindness that can change the fate of a nation. June 3rd, 2024, what seemed like a quiet event in Southeast Asia suddenly drew the eyes of the world. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stepped onto the soil of Manila for the first time in a special visit. There was no grand red carpet, no lavish ceremony, but one thing deeply moved him: the presence of Ukrainian refugees welcomed by the Philippines during the brutal war. In his address before the Philippine Congress, Zelensky said, "We never imagined that a country more than 8,000 kilometers away would be one of the first to open its heart to Ukrainians. The Philippines didn't ask what we had to offer in return. They simply chose to be humane." And at that very session, he made an announcement never before seen in the history of their bilateral ties. Ukraine will open an official embassy in Manila, not just for diplomacy, but out of gratitude. It wasn't just a step forward in diplomatic relations, it was a symbol of trust between a nation still fighting for freedom and a nation that consistently chooses conscience over convenience. Did you know? Although the Philippines and Ukraine had diplomatic ties since 1992, they had little deep interaction. It was the war in 2022 and the act of the Philippines welcoming Ukrainian refugees that rewrote the relationship. From a faraway Eastern European country, Ukraine now sees the Philippines as a true friend during its darkest hour. And it goes beyond diplomacy. In Ukraine, local media published heartfelt stories about the Philippines. People shared photos of the Philippine flag with the word "Dziękuję," meaning thank you. Some Ukrainian organizations even launched donation drives, sending gifts to Filipino communities as a way of giving back.
That low-key
Take
gave
a
me chills,
moment
man.
and reflect. The Philippines is not a rich country. It has no nuclear weapons. It holds no global dominance. But in the darkest hour of another nation, they opened their arms. And here's the miracle. Kindness does not disappear, it comes back in the most beautiful ways. So now we've completed this 5-part journey, each chapter revealing one piece of a greater story. That the Philippines is more than just a nation, it's a humanitarian symbol the world must recognize.
That video was absolutely beautiful and explaining a lot. You know, I feel like sometimes people forget that really all it takes is compassion and really choosing conscious over convenience, you know, like in my heart, or following your heart, even not even just consciousness, right? It's just like, I personally feel like these people are running away, and how about instead of just turning them away or thinking about this politically or just thinking about this, oh, what can I get out of it? Let's just look at them as humans. Like, they need help, you know? Like, at the end of the day, they need help. Let's just do something about it. And boom, that's it. There's nothing more, nothing less. We don't have to conversate about the this and the this and the this. Just look at this as a human being for a second. Like, just think about it like that. I find the Philippines one of the most beautiful places on earth, and especially after visiting there, it will always be one of the most beautiful places on earth that I've ever been. I loved it, man, every second of it. I can't wait to go back. Thank you guys for linking this over, and thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Hey, if you liked it, leave a like. If you loved it, subscribe. If you want more, let me know down in the comments below. And yeah, till next time, guys. Peace.
A river runs through golden sands. Dreams are woven in fragile hands.